This is John Wren, and this is the Startup Show. We're here each Friday, and today just barely here to talk about startup. And today we're going to talk about something just a little bit different. Why Donald Trump? And we're brought to you by the Small Business Chamber of Commerce. We would like to help you do more good work as we do more good work ourselves. And good work, it provides a necessary product or service, a delighted customer, good employment, and perhaps the best opportunity for adult self-directed learning. Our Small Business Chamber of Commerce startup method is comprised of recovery, getting back up on your feet, usually something good first has to have something bad. I mean, that's just a proven fact of life. Almost no one has clear sailing for their entire life. There are setbacks, and we either makes us stronger, we're strongest at our broken point, or it tears us down if we don't recover. Recover is get back up on your feet. So the startup method, first the practice of recovery, imagine, think, learn, and we do those practices to start, grow, and flourish. Martin Seligman's book, Flourish, PERMA, that's what we're shooting for. And that's the ultimate end that we have in mind. And if you'd like to know more about that, come to one of our free meetings or give us a call, 303-861-1447. We'd like to help you do more good work. And I'm going to talk about something a little bit different at the start of the show today, and that is politics. I have been sort of harping on the one aspect, how people get nominated to the ballot. I'm going to talk about one particular race today. And I'm talking here just as myself. I'm not representing any group of people. The Small Business Chamber of Commerce has not voted on this. Save the Caucus, I'm the registered agent. It's a Colorado political committee that's working to save the caucus. We've stopped a couple of things in committee in the legislature. You know, we are trying to think of how can we help the caucus not only just survive, but to thrive. It's certainly not doing that now. There are changes that need to be made. But I'm not speaking to you today representing either one of those groups. This is John Wren's Startup Show. We're sponsored by the Small Business Chamber of Commerce. And but this does not particularly represent the point of view that others that are involved in those things with me. And what I'm going to talk about, as a matter of fact, some of the people that are with me violently disagree with me on this point. But when I ask myself why Donald Trump, I want to share with you a little bit of what goes through my mind. And then I'm going to talk with you about something I'm going to be trying between now, July 31st. I'd like you to maybe think about trying it yourself. That's the spiritual exercises, Ignatian spirituality. This idea of being called, trying to find some sort of a mission or purpose in life. That's the ultimate meaning of begin with the end in mind. But I'm also going to talk about why begin with the end in mind is not sometimes the greatest idea. And the example I'm going to use today about that is Donald Trump. Because my good friends that get real upset about this say, well, here's your choice. It's Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. Which one is it going to be? If you don't support Trump, you're electing Hillary Clinton. And when I was involved in sports, one of the things a coach would always talk about is we play one game at a time. And the game right now is not Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. Now, if Trump gets the nomination and Hillary Clinton gets the nomination, at that point, that's the right way to look at it. But right now, any national delegate going to the convention should just have one game in mind, and that game is going to start when the gavel goes down, and there needs to be an immediate action taken. And the game at that point is Donald Trump, yes or no. And until that's done, Trump is not the candidate. This idea of a presumptive nominee, something the media has cooked up this year. I don't presume that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. I never have. I didn't see that he could, get as far as he has. That's been a surprise to lots of people. But for sure, I don't in any way see that this group of rational people coming together to nominate a candidate for the Republicans is going to end up with Donald Trump. Now, begin with the end in mind is what some people are saying they're doing when they say, well, the decision is Trump or Clinton. But that's not the end. The end is flourish, to have happiness. Those are the kinds of ends that may make some sense. I had a coach that had played on the University of Iowa football team with Alex Karras, and they went to the Rose Bowl and won it twice while he was playing for them. And Forrest Elbashevsky would ask them at the beginning of the season to set a goal for themselves. And both times they said, we want to go to the Rose Bowl and win it. And that's the goal they set for themselves. And that, one season, maybe that does make sense. But the end in mind was not the third game they're going to play. And saying Clinton or Trump is looking ahead towards the third game. And I'll tell you this, if you start looking ahead, you don't do well in the game you have to play right now. And what's in front of delegates right now is the choice of Donald Trump, yes or no. And if I cannot see any rational delegate going to the convention with anything in their own private thoughts other than Donald Trump is a mistake. There's no possible way he could be a good president, in my opinion. And you may be turning this off right now. And if so, I believe you lose out, because I think I can help you maybe think about this in a little bit different way. Now, I'm not down on people that support Trump, and to tell you the truth, I may be totally off on this. If Trump gets the nomination, if he wins the general election and he's in the Oval Office, I won't try to undermine him or sabotage him. I'll try to respect the office, do what I can to be helpful. Not that he's counting on my help, I'm sure, but I don't see that happening. And if it did happen, I don't see it as a good thing. Donald Trump in the Oval Office, he says all he knows is what he sees on the internet. This is not a man with, now he has some terrific experience. I don't want to discount the man, but you want to go with the presidential candidate that, number one, has had military experience. I didn't think we'd ever elect someone unless they'd served. That's why I kind of thought I'd never be a candidate, because I didn't have the opportunity to serve in the armed forces. I flunked my physical. I had a skin problem that if you go into swamps, it is bad. I had problems with sports, playing because of the same thing. Chicken skin, a friend of mine has called it. It's chicken skin. And for the war we were fighting at the time, I'd supported the war effort. I wrote a letter to the editor of the Cornell College newspaper explaining why I was leaving. And they did not allow dissent on the campus. Now, it was much more subtle than it is today. But I went to my fraternity brothers and said, these anti-war protests are going on. We need to organize some sort of a rally supporting the troops, which you saw much more of in the Iraq War. But back in the Vietnam days, nobody supported the troops. And I brought it up to my fraternity brothers, and they said, are you nuts? I mean, do you want to just get drummed out of school? Because all the faculty had one political point of view for the most part. Now, I think I got some real help at Cornell College. I went there 2 years, but I wrote the letter to the editor saying that the reason I'm leaving Cornell College is no one gets pushed off the sidewalk. You had to kind of be politically politically correct. And this is back before I think we even used the term politically correct. It's gone much farther today. But you could see the beginning in these, at least this one little college campus back then. And I could see that was wrong. Now, I also was getting married. They didn't allow married students there. So, you know, but I wanted to try to make some political point as I was leaving. And I think if we had had more debate, discussion, you know, I probably would have been staying, and I probably wouldn't have been just, so anyway, who knows? But, you know, I am not anti-war. I think that that is a natural part of life. We've always had it. It's not something that we want, but we do need to be prepared for it, or we want to be prepared to be ruled by whoever it is that marches in and takes us over. And that still is a possibility in my mind. And so defense is important. And Donald Trump has had no military experience. Now, he says he knows more about what's going on in the Middle East than the generals. Please. So he's going to go in and overrule our military leaders, and God knows what he would do. Putin says he supports Trump. Well, I can imagine he would. You know, you want to take on an opponent you think you can beat, and it would be Trump and Putin making decisions for their countries. You know, the president's finger is on the nuclear button. He's got a temper. He's not knowledgeable, no military experience. As far as dealing with other countries, he's done that, yes, negotiating deals and that type of thing, but that's a vastly different experience than being a diplomat and talking to countries in a way that they understand, knowing the history of countries and how they'll react. He's got no experience in that area. And, you know, I'm sure he'd have his good points. He could do some good things, maybe as a Secretary of Commerce, you know, but a guy has no humility. I don't see him taking a second place role to anybody that would be nominated. But going into the convention, a Republican delegate, and it would only take a handful of them to go in with the absolute certainty that the end is this convention. We're going to nominate the best presidential candidate we can. And we have a representative system. This idea of binding delegates is a lunacy. You know, why even have the convention then? Let's just mail it in. I want delegates to go as a result of full information, make a final decision on who the candidate is. And I think that that's what's going to happen. Now, people say, oh, well, that'll destroy the Republican Party. No, it won't. Without doing that, I think the Republican Party gets destroyed. But I think that's the way that a healthy party approaches things. And this is not the first time that a fight's come up in the Republican Party. You know, the politics in this country is just terrible, and it's really the worst except for all the others. I mean, we have gone longer than anyone else with our system. I think it's in dire need of some clarification on certain issues right now. Trump should have never gotten this far, and in my mind, the reason he's gotten this far is we didn't have the thoughtful process at the grassroots level being exposed to him. He skipped Iowa, he skips Colorado. I don't think he won one caucus state. And that's why I'm such a supporter of the caucus state, the system. I know if you went to a caucus in Colorado this year, you're saying, John, you're crazy, because it was terrible this year because both state party leaders wanted to get rid of the caucus, and they were doing everything they could to work towards that. And one of the things they did was not prepare their parties for the caucus and not reach out. So Donald Trump, no, no, no. Who do I support? Anybody but Donald Trump. I don't have a candidate in mind. Everybody seems to think that anybody that's against Trump is a secret Cruz supporter. Not me. I hadn't ever said I was for Cruz or anyone else. I didn't take a position. You know, if I had my druthers, you know, maybe I would have an idea, but I think a janitor at the convention could do a better job than Donald Trump would. You know, it's just his personality is not suited for the job. He's not knowledgeable. He overestimates his own ability. And I think, a vote for Donald Trump at the convention is a vote for World War III. And I have some libertarian friends that they think that the sooner the end comes, the better, that there'll be this chaos and something better will come out of it. That's possible, but it's also possible that something much worse would come out of it. And I think we have a process in place. I don't think the problem is at the top so much. We want to try to get the best leaders we can in, but whoever we elect president or for our other representative positions, it doesn't matter if we don't have healthy grassroots. And the grassroots is sick across the country right now. And even here in Colorado, where I think our grassroots are healthier than the average because of our caucus system, it's really dwindled down to next to nothing. And if we don't restore the grassroots in business and in politics, I think we're going to continue in a decline. What decline? Some say, oh, everything's, I think probably things are much better than we think. The media tends to be negative. There are a lot of good things going on, but the fact is that we have a declining rate of productivity. Edmund Phelps, in his Nobel Prize winning economist, his most recent book, Mass Flourishing, looks at this, that we've gone down and down and down from the America that we used to be, when the American dream was a real thing for nearly all people. People on their way to work are thinking a better way to do their job, and we've lost that. Now most people hate their job. And we need to get back on the right track, and I think that begins with a healthy grassroots. Now with me and you, here's what I'm suggesting this week. This is the Nation's Spirituality I mentioned earlier. And I was going to take the next 4 weeks and replicate here what I have done in St. Ignatius of Loyola Church for 3 sessions. We did a Jesuit guide study group, and we did it leading up to July 31st. And I thought, well, I'm going to take what I did in those sessions and do it online, but I've decided not to do that. And I'm not going to recommend that you just follow my instruction here, but I'm going to share my experience with you between now and that show after July 31st. So for the next 4 or 5 weeks, part of the show at the end, I will talk to you about what I've been doing. And today I want to just give now our smallbizchamber.org site, smallbizchamber.org site, you can see that I put a couple of links in. One is to the Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything by James Martin. It's a great book. It's fun to read, and it's packed with good information. And if you go in the index and look up spiritual exercises, you'll see the sections in the book that are relevant to the spiritual exercises. And then I'll be talking to you a little bit here each week about the various parts of the exercise that I then, after I've shared with you, will be trying to put into practice myself. And the spiritual exercises, Jesuit priest tracked down Bill Wilson right after he wrote the big book, and it was published. And this Jesuit priest could see the spiritual exercises of the Jesuits in the 12 steps. And one of the AA history books, it records this priest coming and talking to Bill, and he asks Bill, do you know anything about the spiritual exercises? And Bill supposedly said, no, I've never heard of them. And he may have been telling the truth, but maybe not, because he had read William James' book, The Varieties of Spiritual Experience. And in that book, William James talks a bit about the spiritual exercises. So Bill, if he'd read that book carefully, definitely would have at least had a little idea. And I wonder if he didn't go back to William James and pull some of the wording out actually into the big book. And my thought is that when Bill heard this priest ask if he'd heard of the spiritual exercises, that he was getting ready to attack Bill and say he couldn't use it. But Ignatius of Loyola, who was the founder of the Jesuit movement, Jesuit order, Pope Francis is a Jesuit. Everyone was surprised at that. They're intentionally humble people. They, don't put themselves forward for things like that. So it was amazing that Pope Francis was selected, but he was, and a lot of the things that people like about him have come out of the Ignatian spiritual view of life, that we seek and serve God in each person, and that we are not, the other person may be 99% bad, but there's some good in, no matter who it is, and that's the good that the Jesuits focus on. And that's been my experience with them. Some people say, oh, this, that, or the other thing, and they maybe have had a bad experience, but I've worked with them directly way before I thought about becoming Catholic. And eventually I did become Catholic, but and they had a lot to do with it. But no more so than Thomas Merton. I read the book Seven Storey Mountain, and it blew me away. I had no faith at all when I just by accident picked up Seven Storey Mountains. And James Martin had a similar experience with Thomas Merton. It ended up leading him to the Jesuit order. And he's written this book, Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything. And look up spiritual exercises. But the exercises are divided into 4 weeks. Now, it's not necessarily a week. One of the ways they go through the exercises is in a much longer way. They do it in a 30-day retreat, an 8-day retreat, but they also do it as in your daily life. And so you do it from the fall to the spring. And that's the way that I did it, with the Jesuit priest as my guide through that. And it was really a powerful experience that I believe equipped me to do some things that I did following that made a difference to my family. And I'm feeling the need to revisit them again. And these study groups that I did at Ignatius of Loyola Church, grew from a similar need, because I had done the spiritual exercises over a longer period of time. This book came out, I really liked it, and I felt like leading a study group around the book would be a way to keep the spiritual exercises fresh in my own mind. And the phone's ringing. If you want to be on the show, I encourage people to call, but not while the show's on. The call is to get you scheduled as a guest. So if you'd like to be a guest on the show and talk about your experiences with the spiritual exercises or your views on Donald Trump, call 303-861-1447, but not while the show's on. Apparently, maybe that person's watching and just got that message. I'm sorry, I can't take it right now. But the weeks of the spiritual exercise, these 4 divisions. In the first, it's very similar to the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's very similar to the first step. We admitted, and whether someone's in AA or not, nobody's going to say, yes, I'm an AA, because it's an anonymous program. If I'm an Overeaters Anonymous, it's an anonymous program. I'm not going to say I'm an Overeaters Anonymous or any other anonymous group, but that doesn't mean that everybody can't talk about it. And most have open meetings that you can go to and learn about them. I found one that is, I believe, very helpful to people that just kind of are curious and want to know more. Root and Branch. It's each Monday at 4:30, 1311 York Street, and you can go and just bring up whatever problem you're dealing with and how would the 12 steps affect this. Now, that's the only meeting in that building that's that way. The rest of the meetings are addressing a particular problem, alcoholism. So 1311 York Street, Mondays at 4:30 if you'd like to know more about the 12 steps. But I'll be talking about it a little bit here, and it's very much in keeping with the new Small Business Chamber of Commerce startup method, because the first step in startup is this recovery, getting back up on our feet. The first 3 steps in recovery are, first, that we admit the problem, see that our lives become unmanageable, and 2, we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us from our insanity, because it's insane behavior. When someone is an overeater and they go and buy a half gallon of ice cream and eat it again after thinking they're going to bring it home and it's going to last for a month, That's insane behavior. And we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves, sometimes just the group or the process. You know, everybody picks their own God, but everybody believes in something. Eric Hoffer was a longshoreman, became a philosopher, and he wrote a book called The True Believer, and he says everyone believes in something, and I think that's true. You know, scientists can suffer from scientism, where they put their faith in science and it becomes a problem for them, and they just can't see other points of view, and it makes them worse scientists. You know, good scientists hold things in a tentative way and are ready to view, because inductive logic means you're never quite sure. There can be a new piece of logic that comes in that changes your mind, and good scientists know that. Amateurs that are kind of on the fringe of science tend to be the true believers. But we come to believe that whatever we believe in can free us from our insanity, and sometimes that's just the group that we're getting together with, and then we'd make a decision to go for that. And in the spiritual exercises, that's done through just reflecting on our past life, what's brought us to this point. And I'll be doing that this week. I encourage you to do it. Also go to smallbizchamber.org, and you'll see in the upper left-hand corner 2 links. One is to the Jesuit guide for almost everything, James Martin. You can right there link to it. It's, you know, it says buy now, don't click on that because that's later, but click on the upper part and it will let you read quite a bit of the book just for free online and connect you to various places that you can purchase the book. It's in all the libraries, so if you don't want to buy a book right now, go to your local library and check it out. James Martin, Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything. And we'll be talking about the second week next week. And I'll be doing the first week this week. And if you want to do the first week this week, another resource is on that smallbizchamber.org site. And that's a link to an online way to do the spiritual exercises over a bit of a more extended time. Although you could binge watch the whole thing between now and next week, but it might not be that you'd be able to get hardly anything else done. But some people are doing that. And we're going to do the exercises here over the next 4 weeks. But I don't want you to think of me as your sponsor, leader, guide. If you're doing them, I'll entertain you with mine. And next year, I may do more along those lines. But for this year, what I'm really encouraging you to do is to try to find someone to meet with one-on-one each week. This could be a sponsor that you're involved with. If you're in a 12-step program, it could be a therapist if you're involved in therapy. 12-step programs in no way conflict with other ways of healing. Could be just a really good friend that you sit down with each week and talk about how it's going with you. And if you want to look back through your life, one of the things that comes out of that is things I really do need to change. But also the fact that this higher power loves me anyway. I mean, that becomes more and more clear the more I look at, you know, when I share what's going on with me, it doesn't, if I have a good friend that's not just enabling dysfunctional behavior, it helps me see what I need to change, and it develops a desire that I want to change. That was my experience before. I'll be doing it this week and give you just a brief overview of how that goes for me this week, and then we'll talk about week 2 next week. And if this goes as planned, July 31st, I will have a bit more of a sense of direction. I'm doing too many things. Every time I try to take some stuff off my plate, seems like more stuff gets onto my plate. And I'm going to try to narrow the focus of what I'm doing. You know, I'm kind of in the red zone now. Getting that final 20 yards, there's not that much time left. And what I said when I was 20 years old, you know, hey, this is a good learning experience, no longer makes all that much sense. I sort of need to go with the knowledge I've got, but that doesn't mean we keep learning. And one of the ways that I do that is with Socrates Cafe. There's a meeting tonight at Panera Bread in Lodo, 16th and Market. There's one tomorrow at University of Denver in the library and current periodicals and the comfortable chairs. And any of those things that you want to learn about, or you can see links on that smallbizchamber.org site. And this afternoon on Friday, there's also an Idea Cafe startup workshop, which talks about the Small Business Chamber startup method. It's free and open to everybody. Both those meetings are. I encourage you to join us. It's the same place as Socrates Cafe tonight. It's at 16th and Market in the Lodo Panera Bread. And I'm also putting together a Franklin Circle, an adult self-directed learning group, people with similar outlooks on life, but not clones. The more diversity, the better, up to a certain point. But it can't be just an all-out fight. Yeah, I had a group I helped put together, and it was destroyed by a radically left-wing person and a radically right-wing person that just couldn't, do anything but dominate the conversation. And now it also is people that want to learn what other people are thinking. If you have it all figured out, you probably wouldn't care for it. But if you would like a group to support your own independent self-directed learning, let me know, and I will tell you more about this group that's just now coming together. Well, that's it for today. I was tempted to do something I've never done before, and that was to go off the internet completely for a month while I did the spiritual exercise. But instead, I'm going to be sharing with you here what I'm doing each week. I'm also meeting privately with someone, as I suggested for you. And between now and July 31st, I'm going to try to come up with a much clearer idea of what is it I'm going to do with the time that I have left. And, that's a good question for all of us, because this life is much, much shorter than we think. My friend Bill Armstrong found that out. Thanks, Bill, for all your service. Thanks for your friendship. But this life is very short. Let's go get started. Thanks for watching.